Hi there, welcome back to the YouTube channel. So bit of a week. We have a bit of a lull in time because we're waiting. Well, I'm waiting for the Lost Caverns of Ixalan to start. Spoilers to start. Obviously, there was a video last week from one of the cards I picked up on, so I'm hoping we find out a bit more this week, especially about the map tokens that we seem to be having coming through. So I'm going over some of the sets that have been out in the last 18 months or so. One's a lot further back, I'll be honest about it. This week, just to catch up on some of the commanders that I didn't do at the time, because on MTGO, when they first came out, they were really expensive to buy, and they've come down in price quite a lot. And obviously, so there's going to be 4 videos of that ilk this week, but today's one, you all know what you're here for. We're all here for Ob Nixilis, Captive Kingpin. 2 black and red for a 4/3 flying trample legendary demon. Yep, okay, Ob Nixilis has lost his Planeswalker Spark. Such a shame. But the ability he has now is quite interesting. Whenever one or more opponents lose exactly 1 life, put a +1/+1 counter on Ob Nixilis, exile the top card of your library until your next end step. You may play that card. So we get a little bit of having fun and playing stuff, getting a bit of extra card draw on the go, and making Ob Nixilis bigger as we go along. Not a bad combination of abilities, especially when I looked into it and realised how many things there are still available on MTGO that deal exactly 1 damage or benefit from playing things from exile. So here we go. This is today's deck. Okay, so here we go. Here's the deck itself. Usual selection. There's only 35 lands in the deck, but we do have a lot of ramp, and most of our stuff is focused around 1, 2 and 3 mana, so we should be okay. Black and red lands all the way through. I am playing Veiled Passage and Field of the Dead. We do have slightly more mountains than we have swamps, purely because of how the makeup of the deck worked out when I was putting it together. But, you know, Black Dragon Gate, Black Cleave Cliffs, Bloodfell Caves, Cliff Gate, so on and so forth, they're here. Now, you can actually build this reasonably well in paper, but there are going to be a few cards that I'll try to mention as we go through the deck today that you may want to take out and replace with cheaper options, because at the moment, although the deck is sitting at just under 30 tickets, 28.69 on MTGO, real life, if you want to build this in paper, you're looking at $290, which, you know, is a bit much. I get that at the moment. I'll point the cards out that you can take out as we go along. The first one is going to be Jeweled Lotus, just to be clear. That's kicking around about $80 at the moment. So you can drop this out and just play something else instead. There could be, you could play one of the other signets. But the ramp side of things, Tantalite online, Soul Talisman online, Jeweled Lotus online, Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, the black and the red medallions, like the Nope and Talisman of Indulgence. There we go. That's it. That's our ramp side of things. We don't need much more than that. That should be enough. And the only one of them you probably really do need to take out after you've taken out Field of the Dead, if you want to drop the price by $22, is Jeweled Lotus, because the rest of it is kind of bearable, apart from maybe the medallions could come out. That probably saves you another $30 if you try and build it in paper. But anyway, here we go. Kedrick Parasite. This is a nice card. Whenever an opponent draws a card, if you control a red permanent, you may have that deal 1 damage to that player. With Ob Nixilis in play, that's a 1 damage. That's an extra +1/+1 counter an exiled card on each opponent's upkeep. I will point out that Kedrick Parasite is one of the more expensive cards in the deck. I believe it's sitting around about $16 at the moment. But unfortunately, it comes from Conflux, so it's quite old, but it's worth having in the deck just to make sure you do get the triggers for this. So, yeah. We've got other things. We've got Fanatical Firebrand, so we can sack it and do one if we need to make Ob Nixilis bigger. Arsonist, when it dies, does one. Makes Goblin bigger. Kumar faces Kazana. Also does it. It deals 1 damage to each opponent, so you get the +1/+1 counters that way. Goblin Fanatic, you can do 1 damage with by sacking it off. And Sawblade Scamp. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put an oil counter on it, remove an oil counter, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. Nice repeatable way of making Ob Nixilis even bigger, so keeping the Scamp alive can be quite good in this deck. Spikefield Hazard gives us our 36th land, or gives us, if we've got enough mana and due to artifacts or so on, gives us a nice way of doing 1 damage to anything. Voldaren Epicure comes into play. We all know this card. It still turns up occasionally in red decks at the moment. Does one, gives you the blood tokens. You can discard a card and draw if you need to. And Elixir of Immortality is so when all of these have died off, and they will die off quite quickly, you get a nice way of shuffling more back into your library and repeat the process. Electrostatic Field, we have a few instants and sorceries, not many, but when we cast them, we get to do this, but it is a good 0/4 blocker early in the game. Likewise, Firebrand Archer, whenever we cast a non-creature spell, each opponent takes 1. Now, just bear in mind, whenever 1 or more opponents lose exactly 1 life, so you're only going to get 1+1+1 for this, even though you may be doing 2 or 3 damage to your opponents when you cast non-creatures, but bear it in mind. Gibbering Fiend deals 1 to everyone that comes into play, and then as long as we've got Delirium, which is 4 or more cards of different types in our graveyard, which is a bit tricky but is doable, you get to do that 1 damage at the beginning of your upkeep each turn, which gives you the triggers you need for Ob Nixilis. Impact Tremors, Goblin Bombardment. Sack the creatures, do 1. Impact Tremors does 1 to everyone when the creatures enter. Kessick Flame Bearers does the same as the Firebrand Archers, but just a slightly bigger butt on it and a smaller front end. Thermo Street Urchin, there you go. I put this in because I quite like playing the backgrounds occasionally. This one's quite nice. You get to sacrifice a creature that may be doing nothing for you and deal 1 damage. Or an artifact you finish using. Oh, sorry, bit of a yawn there. Or it's an artifact you don't need for some reason anymore. You can just sack it off. Deals 1 damage to any target. Thermo Alchemist is here. Instance of sorceries that untaps, pings everyone. Fine. Jury, Master Review. I think we're going to be... yeah, there's going to be some things that aren't being sacrificed, but even if this dies, it deals 1 damage, which means it triggers Ob Nixilis. So even if we haven't got it bigger, it's all pretty good. Only Cult Anvil. Whenever 1 or more artifacts you control leave the battlefield during your turn, you get a constructed thing and triggers once each turn, but you can sack and sacrifice, deal 1 damage to each opponent, gain a life. You've got things you can sacrifice eventually. Signet is not one of them, obviously, but Arcane Tablet. If you want a card you want to get rid of, this is an expensive one from back in the day. I think if you try and pick one up at the moment, I'm just checking the price. I think it was like $15 when I looked last time. No, $28. So you might want to drop this one out as well. But it's repeatable damage at the beginning of each player's upkeep. And that does include you, so you do take damage. Deals 1 damage to that player. Makes Ob Nixilis. Cast Ob Nixilis, have this in play. By the time you start taking your 1 damage, Ob Nixilis is already up to a 7/6 and becoming a big threat in the air. Bear that in mind. The Boots and the Lightning Greaves are here to protect Obby when we get him into play. The Hooded Blight Fang, we have the odd creature with Death Touch kicking around. I think we do anyway. Hold on. No, we don't. I took all the Death Touch creatures out. So, yeah, we're going to take this out here and now, live as part of the video. We're going to put in the one thing I was trying to fit in. I found something to put in there. Yeah. So, deck list will be updated. It's down below. We'll put Prosper in because Prosper's just good in this deck because of the exiling side of things. But anyway, let's carry on. Sorry about that. Underworld Dreams. Everyone, when an opponent draws a card, deals 1 damage to that player. Thank you. Cunning Spark Mage. Pings any target for 1. Flicker Coin gives you a treasure, a draw a card, and a 1 damage to anything, which could give you that little bit of time you need. Nettle Drone. Devoid. Doesn't really make any difference in this deck, but tapping it to deal 1 damage to each opponent is quite nice. And you do get to do the odd thing when you cast your colourless spells. You know, we've got all these here. It is possible we cast these out to untap it. Unruly Catapult. Another way of getting another one with the big butt that goes into play. Taps to do damage to everybody and untaps when you cast instant sorceries. From here, we can move to Valakut Awakening, which gives us our 37th land and gives us a way of getting more cards on hand if we need them. Zuzu, Chaos Rider. Now, we're not giving anyone any additional ways of drawing cards, but some people will do. And the devil tokens, when they die, do 1 damage, which makes Ob Nixilis really interesting. So here we're here. The Glinthone Buccaneer does a discard a card, deals 1 damage to each opponent. That's fine. We can pay 1 and a red every so often to discard 1 and draw 1, and when it's attacking, okay, cope with that. Judith the Scourge Diva, our creatures die, they ping someone, makes Ob Nixilis bigger, and Mayhem Devil. Yeah, people are sacking a lot of treasures at the moment. Food tokens, clue tokens, even blood tokens. It's kind of there. So yeah, it's a sacrifice deck at the end of the day, what we want to do. And it does do 1 damage every time someone sacks something. So, Ill-Gotten Inheritance. Whenever you begin your upkeep, it deals 1 damage to each opponent and you gain a life. So tiny little bit of life gain. Obviously, if you need to finish players off or finish a player off who's under 4 or less life, 5 and a black will do that for you. You gain 4, but otherwise you're getting a repeatable damage every turn to get Ob Nixilis bigger. Vindictive Vampire. When a creature you control dies, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. You gain a life, which is quite nice with Ob Nixilis. And Pestilence. Pestilence is old school, I have to say, and I'm really pleased I remembered it. I think there was a red version of it, but I couldn't remember what it was called, and I couldn't be bothered to look it up. But I had the black version in my collection already. So yeah, Pestilence is quite nice. 1 black mana, deal a point of damage to everybody, including yourself, so be careful with it. But again, another way of triggering Ob Nixilis if we need to. And the Chandras start appearing now, because a lot of the Chandras do 1 damage to anything. And because they do 1 damage to any target, it's 1 damage to opponent, Ob Nixilis gets bigger. We're not going to complain. Dance with the Devils gives you some devil tokens. Again, they die, they do a damage. Flame Fusillade, sorry. Yeah. Interesting sorcery coming in from the Ravnica set, original one, if I remember correctly. City of Guilds, yep. Yeah, 4 mana. Until the end of turn, permanents you control gain. Tap this permanent and deals 1 damage to any target. Permanents. Not creatures, not anything else. Permanents. So all your lands for 1 turn become targeted, tapping shocks, pingers. All your Mox Tantalize, your Soul Talisman, Elixir of Immortality, Soul Ring, everything. You just tap it and it deals 1 damage. You can make Ob Nixilis humongously big with this in 1 turn, and it's worth playing out. Especially if we're just trying to get in an Alpha Strike with Ob Nixilis somehow. Just bear in mind. Lightning Volley. Until this is the other version of it. We had the Fusillade here, which is better for all permanents. Lightning Volley is an instant, only does creatures, but the same idea. Outpost Siege, whenever a creature we control leaves the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to any target. So leaves the battlefield's key here, because even if they exile it, you still get the 1 damage. So bear that in mind. The next Chandra, the Pyromaster's here to do another bit of 1 damage to everyone. Hellrider, when we attack with our creatures, each creature deals 1 damage to that player or planeswalker it's attacking. Now, as far as I'm aware, and if I remember the triggers I've seen on MTGO correctly, each of these triggers individually, so that means every time you get 1, you make Ob Nixilis even bigger. Jessica, Warrior Adept, just turns up to do 1 damage to any target. Probably one of the weaker cards in the deck. You can drop it if you don't want to play it. 3/1 is fairly easy to remove. Leyline of Lightning. Don't see many ley lines in decks nowadays. Yeah, you don't. But this one basically means if you pay 1 extra mana for each of your spells, you get to ping either a target player or planeswalker. So, with Ob Nixilis in play, repeatable damage is good. Urbrask appears as well. It is a case of activate only if you've cast 3 or more instants of sorcery spells this turn, which is a little bit difficult, but whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, it pings someone, you add a red mana. Ping, like that. So chances of flipping a Brask are remote, but yeah, whatever. Zuriel, Duke of Averance, is also here, mainly because he creates devils that we need to do things, and push we can do the +1 and give all our creatures +1 and haste until the end of turn, so hey hum. Spiteful Visions, beginning of each player's draw step, that player draws an additional card. Whenever a player draws a card, Spiteful Visions deals 1 damage to that player. So you are going to be shocking yourself when you have this in play, but makes Obby really big. And Prosper, well, you just saw me change the deck around to include Prosper because I realised I've taken all the Death Touch stuff out. Because we are exiling cards and we are going to be probably playing them from exile, we're going to be getting some treasure tokens with a bit of luck. And even if we don't, Prosper's still such a big threat. It is another Death Touch creature, I realise that. But, you know, people tend to kill the Prosper on sight. So, you know, eat some of the removal spells that might otherwise be going here. Ob Nixilis is also in his Planeswalker form from the original one where he could be a commander. From back in the day, each opponent loses 1 life, you gain life equal to the life lost this way. Yep, each opponent loses 1 or more life. Yep, okay, we get to make our other Ob Nixilis bigger. And Sir Conrad. Yeah, creatures are going to die. Yeah. Whenever a creature dies, a creature card is put into graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves your graveyard, Sir Conrad deals 1 damage to each opponent. Yeah, okay then. All will be 1. Combos infinitely with Ob Nixilis if you get to put a +1/+1 counter on it. Because you put a +1/+1 counter on here somehow. A counter goes on here. And yeah, because you're putting a counter on here, deals damage. Everyone takes 1 while the opponent takes 1. Then, oh, another +1/+1 counter goes on here. Oh, opponent takes 1 and it keeps going again. So yeah, infinite combo. You will win the game with it. Burn Down the House is also in play, mainly to get the devil tokens. And Raphael. I know I did a whole deck about Raphael and the demons, devils, imps and tieflings the other week. But this one's here because it gives us another load of devils and we want to ping things where we can. Akuma Hellkite, the landfall trigger. Lovely when you drop anything else. Yep, okay, the mountains do shocks, but everything else does little pings, so that helps build up Ob Nixilis. And Chandra, the emblems. Thank you very much. Everyone can have an emblem. Gives you continuous triggers again for Ob Nixilis. I'm not sure what happens if you get 2 emblems. I haven't had a Chandra in play long enough to have 2 emblems on everyone. I've only managed to keep her in play long enough to have 1 emblem on everyone before she got killed off. So I'm not sure if they stack up. I think they may do, but don't hold me to that if they don't. And finally, Blasphemous Axe, just to control the board. And that's it. That is my take on Ob Nixilis, the Captive Kingpin. Hope you've enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments if you think there's any cards I've missed out. Hopefully you've hit the sub button. I'm sitting at 259 as I record this one at the moment. So, you know, hopefully if you haven't been here before, you're going to hit the subscribe button. Help me out. And, you know, subscribe should be here somewhere. Lovely. Thank you. But in the meantime, thanks for watching. I'll be back tomorrow with another card and another deck tech. Take care. See you soon. Bye.